Chapter 931. Although his strength is only at the initial stage of martial emperor realm, his final strength is likely to reach the middle stage of martial emperor realm. In this kind of situation, if Luo Qingtong's strength is not at the martial emperor realm, it is almost impossible for her to win against Yu Wenma. Of course you can. As long as you have enough perception. Yi Qianxian's expression is indifferent. Is that so? Looking at the man's pair of deep black eyes, Luo Qingtong suddenly smiles. What I don't lack the most is perception. If these words were said by someone else, it would be extremely arrogant and conceited. But when Luo Qingtong said it, she had absolute confidence. Her pair of blood-red eyes can see through too many things. Perception, this kind of thing, is it very difficult to see through the situation? But, how do I know that chief instructor is telling the truth? Whether it is true or not, you will know when you try it yourself. Yi Qianxian looks at the crafty little fox in front of him. This woman has always been so crafty. Obviously she is already tempted and wants to become his student, but she is deliberately provoking him so that he will take the initiative to take her as his student. However, Yi Qianxian's goal is Luo Qingtong. This woman, if I don't keep an eye on her, I won't feel at ease. Previously when he left here to go back to that side, this woman attracted a rotten peach blossom for him. Thinking of when Yu Huang came to the Black Field and said that he is in love with this woman and wants him to fulfill his wish, Yi Qianxian's expression darkens. At the same time, in a splendid mountain gate of the southern region, in a gorgeous palace, a devilish man wearing purple clothes is standing at the entrance of the palace. He raises his hand and gently caresses the tear mole at the corner of his eye while listening to his subordinate's report. Still can't find any news about evil Dr. Gui Tong? Yu Huang frowns, his devilish handsome face looks at the person kneeling below him. Yes. The person kneeling on the ground reports. Our people are currently unable to enter any of the Blackfield cities in the eastern region. Once someone enters they will be discovered. Then he would be thrown out. As the man spoke, he silently wiped away the sweat in his heart. He had no idea how his sect leader had offended the supreme martial artist of the Blackfield. He actually made the latter issue a ban on the people of the Imperial sect and the 3 islands and 7 lands, forbidding them from entering the Blackfield. Last time the sect leader almost came back injured. He wondered if it was because of this incident. Just as he was thinking this, he heard his sect master say, Yi Qianxian sure is quick to act. It directly blocked his way of getting information from the Blackfield. However, the Blackfield was not the only place to gather information in the entire eastern region. Thinking like this, Yu Huang suddenly raised his finger and lightly tapped the tear in his eye. A devilish smile appeared on his face. Yi Qianxian, you're in such a hurry because you're afraid that I'll snatch that person away, right? To be able to make the underworld supreme of the Blackfield so unconfident, does it mean that he actually still has a chance? Thinking like this, Yu Huang's mind floated to Luo Qingtong's graceful bearing in that canyon. That tear mole, under the contrast of his smile, seemed even more enchanting and charming. At this moment, a protector of the Imperial sect suddenly rushed in from the outside. Not good. Sect leader, the young miss has disappeared. She only left you a letter saying. Chapter 932. After the protector finished speaking, Yu Huang also opened the letter in his hand, and a line of words instantly jumped out. Brother, you don't have to look for me. Just wait for me to help you find your future bride. Under that line of words, there was also a drawing of a mischievous and cute girl with a grimace. Yu Xingqi. Seeing this line of words and that grimace, Yu Huang's forehead instantly burst with blue veins. He didn't have the slightest bit of other brothers' expression when they heard that their sister was so considerate and considerate. Not for anything else, Yu Xingqi, that little witch, had always liked to make things difficult for him. She was two-faced and cunning. It was good enough that she didn't help him mess things up, but he still expected her to help him. Leave immediately and prepare to go to the eastern domain. In addition, send a message to the people in the Blackfield, tell Yi Qianxian to be careful. There are remnants of Silver Sword's people who escaped. Maybe they will find trouble with evil Dr. Gui Tong. Yu Huang originally wanted to use this news to win the favor of the beauty, and also to express his concern and protection to Luo Qingtong. In the end, when he went to the Blackfield, he was almost left there by Yi Qianxian. Naturally, he forgot to mention this matter. At this time, he could only send a message to the Blackfield, and let Yi Qianxian pass it to Luo Qingtong on his behalf. That man got lucky. Yes. A group of people from the Imperial sect received the order and immediately set off. At the entrance of the Empire of Qin's holy courtyard, a young girl wearing a light blue dress with 2 buns on her head, holding a small white cat in her arms, raised her head and looked at the four words, "The Empire of Qin's Holy Courtyard," in front of her, her face revealing an extremely sweet and cute smile. "Dudu, we're here." She stroked the little white cat in her arms and said. The young girl's voice was clear and bright, revealing an indescribable feeling of joy. "Brother, that idiot doesn't even know what a roundabout is. If we can't find evil Dr. Gui Tong, we can start from the people around her." The girl smiled sweetly and skipped toward the gate of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. "Even if we can't do anything to Ming Zun in the Black Field, we still have the people from the royal family of Tianyu that she fought before. It's said that the two most promising juniors of Ling clan are in Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. One of them is called Luo Qingtong, the future daughter-in-law of the royal family of Tianyu. Aren't they the best way to find evil Dr. Ghost Eyes? Especially that Luo Qingtong. I heard that evil Dr. Gui Tong has a good relationship with her Luo clan. They might be one of the reasons why Tianyu's royal family was destroyed. Under such circumstances, it'll be easier to find evil Dr. Ghost Eye if we follow him." "Silly brother, I told him that he's dumber than me and not as smart as me, but he's still not convinced," Yu Xingqi said as he bounced towards the entrance of the Empire of Qin's Holy Court. "Stop. This is an important place of the Holy Court. Outsiders are not allowed to trespass." Seeing that Yu Xingqi was just a child, the guards outside the Holy Court of the Empire of Qin stopped her without any hesitation. Yu Xingqi tilted her head and looked at them, then suddenly smiled. Boom. Suddenly, a powerful aura exploded around her. "Go and tell the old men of the Holy Court that I want to enter. Martial Emperor Realm." Seeing the powerful aura exploding from her body, the guards of the Holy Court of the Empire of Qin were dumbfounded. The young girl in front of them seemed to be only 12 or 13 years old. Chapter 933. Oh my God! Which family did this genius come from? The group of people answered and hurriedly ran to the Sacred Institute. With her strength and ability, she could enter the Sacred Institute of the Empire of Qin without taking the exam and ignoring the enrollment time of the Sacred Institute. At the same time, in the Sacred Institute of the Empire of Qin, Luo Qingtong had received Yi Qianxian's personal permission to become his closed-door student. In addition to her, Yuan Hu and the others had also become Yi Qianxian's closed-door students. Yi Qianxian seemed to choose all kinds of students in an eclectic manner. But in fact, he had become the chief instructor of the Sacred Institute because of Luo Qingtong. If it weren't for her, how could he, a dignified Hell Venerable, lower himself to teach students? The selection this time was naturally based on Luo Qingtong's considerations. Except for Su Xiaoxiao, who was a student of the Pharmaceutical Institute, all the people around Luo Qingtong had been chosen by him. In addition, he had also chosen several core members of the Gui Yuan group. In addition to some other students with excellent qualifications, Yi Qianxian had chosen a total of 20 closed-door students. There was no other way. The Grand Supreme Dean, that old fox, had grasped Yi Qianxian's intention to stay but didn't want Luo Qingtong to know. He had asked him to help the Sacred Institute train a few students. Anyway, if you train one, it's still training. It doesn't matter if you train a few more. This was what the Grand Supreme Dean had said shamelessly. What's more, that evil Dr. Kid is so shrewd. If you train only one of her, she may find out at any time. Otherwise, she'll think you have other intentions. She won't give you a chance to get close to her. Don't blame me for not making arrangements for you. The Grand Supreme Dean's words successfully convinced Yi Qianxian. He coldly agreed to the Grand Supreme Dean's request. Anyway, except for Luo Qingtong, he wouldn't spend too much effort on the others. How much those people could learn and how much they could improve themselves would depend on themselves. At that time, the Grand Supreme Dean was overjoyed. The Blackfield's Hell Venerable had come to train his students in person. Which sacred institution had such an honor? Given Yi Qianxian's strength and cultivation base, Yi Qianxian's strength and cultivation base were far superior to Yi Qianxian. While he was giving pointers to Luo Qingtong, he also casually gave some pointers to the other students. Those people would benefit immensely. Moreover, Yi Qianxian should at least give some pointers to the people around the evil doctor, right? It was as if the Grand Supreme Dean could already see his own student's strength soaring. As for Luo Qingtong, he was even less worried. Alas, it was indeed the right decision to trick the evil doctor into joining the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. Otherwise, how could there be so many benefits? Thinking of this, the Grand Supreme Dean instantly decided to take good care of Luo Qingtong. Especially those people from the Elders' Council, he absolutely couldn't let them do anything to Luo Qingtong and the others. He didn't care about the fight between Luo Qingtong and the Dragon Regiment. An appropriate fight would help Luo Qingtong increase her strength and temper herself. Yi Qianxian probably thought the same. However, the Elders' Council and the others couldn't interfere. There was also the great teacher of the Soul Institute who had just left. The Grand Supreme Dean thought and decided to go to the Soul Institute to give them a beating. They definitely couldn't interfere in the fight between students. Otherwise, don't blame him for being merciless. Thinking of this, the Grand Supreme Dean hurriedly left to get busy. Chapter 934. On the empty ground of the Sky Hall training ground, Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianren, who had finished selecting the students. She raised her eyebrows and said playfully, "I wonder how Chief Instructor is going to train us?" Luo Qingtong was very interested in the other party's plan. Luo Qingtong had a few ideas to raise her cultivation level within a month. However, they would all overdraft her potential. This would damage her foundation and affect her future strength and advancement. Luo Qingtong was the supreme ocular sorcerer of the 24th century. Her blood-red eyes were invincible. Naturally, she knew the importance of a strong foundation to one's strength. Otherwise, with the power of her blood-red eyes, it would be a simple matter for her to raise her strength. After all, the difference between each cultivation level was obvious in her blood-red eyes. She could completely simulate the circulation of the aura in the bodies of the powerful cultivators she had seen and forcibly raise her strength. However, raising her strength was like building a house. Whether it was a sturdy house that could stand for thousands of years or a house that was built with tofu dregs, the result was self-evident. Therefore, Luo Qingtong had been steadily raising her strength. Otherwise, when she had absorbed so much of Yi Qianxian's power at the Blackfield City in Dongli country, she would have been promoted to the Martial Emperor realm or even higher. However, she suppressed it and walked step by step with steadfast determination. Her goal was to reach the peak. She was to be looked up to by thousands and to be invincible. What was a temporary increase in strength? However, the chief instructor in front of her said that he could raise her strength from the Martial Emperor realm to the Martial Emperor realm within a month. Based on his identity as a teacher, this method would not damage her foundation. Therefore, Luo Qingtong was very interested. "You'll know when the time comes." Yi Qianxian's expression was indifferent. He looked at Luo Qingtong, then stretched out his hand and said, "Come here." Luo Qingtong looked at him and raised her eyebrows. Then she walked over. But the moment she walked in front of Yi Qianren, she stopped in her tracks. "Chief Instructor, what are you doing?" Luo Qingtong grabbed the other person's hand that was touching her back. She didn't like physical contact with others, especially men with dangerous strength. This would cause Luo Qingtong's body to instinctively counterattack. Unfortunately, the chief instructor in front of him was such a powerful man. It depends on the flow of energy in your body. Yi Qianxian was in a very good mood when he saw that she was as vigilant as a small beast whose territory had been invaded. It was good that this woman knew how to keep a distance from others. But looking at the girl's appearance, he couldn't help but want to tease her. In front of him, Luo Qingtong had always been arrogant, willful, and cunning. It was rare for her to be so vigilant and angry. She looked very cute. It was rare to see Luo Qingtong like this. Yi Qianxian was not ready to give up. "If I don't know how the energy in your body is circulating, how can I tailor a training plan for you? Or do you think it's so easy to raise from the Martial Emperor realm to the Martial Emperor realm within a month?" Yi Qianxian's words made Luo Qingtong frown. Although she still felt uncomfortable, what he said was indeed reasonable. With this thought, Luo Qingtong immediately let go of Yi Qianxian's hand. "Okay, Chief Instructor, check it out." As she spoke, she circulated the energy in her body. Yi Qianxian's hand pressed on her back. Chapter 935. As Luo Qingtong's power revolved within her body, his palm began to wander around Luo Qingtong's back. Seeing that his hand was about to move to Luo Qingtong's waist, Luo Qingtong stopped the circulation of power within her body and grabbed his hand. "Chief Instructor, what are you doing?" Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian with a fake smile on her face. Was this man harassing her? Having experienced 2 lives, Luo Qingtong had seen such reckless people before. But those people, without exception, had all died very miserably. The only one who was spared was Yi Qianxian, that inhuman man. But that was the man she fancied. What right did this man in front of her have? So what if he was strong? So what if he was the chief instructor? Apart from the man she fancied, if anyone else dared to harass her like this, even if they were the emperor, she would let them know that she wasn't so easy to touch. Luo Qingtong's expression had already turned completely cold. The bloody light in her eyes was faintly discernible. Suddenly, her fingers seemed to touch something very hard in the other party's hand. Luo Qingtong subconsciously looked up, but didn't find anything. But where his fingers touched, the touch was very obvious. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. The moment she lowered her head, she activated her pupil technique. With just a glance at the other party's body and hand, Luo Qingtong was so angry that she laughed. Yi Qianho. The man's body was shrouded in a layer of faint energy light, wrapping his entire body. Luo Qingtong's pupil technique couldn't see too clearly, but this wasn't the most important thing. The important thing was that on the ring finger of his left hand, the place where the energy wrapped around the protrusion was in the shape of a ring. This damned man. Luo Qingtong clenched her teeth. It was normal that she couldn't see through the other party, but if she couldn't see through him and he had a hidden ring on his finger. On top of that, the other party had protected her in front of the Seoul Institute's great teacher. Now, he had specially said that he could raise her strength to the martial emperor realm within a month, taking her in as his student in a roundabout way. Furthermore, he had taken liberties with her just now. Luo Qingtong would be a fool if she still couldn't guess his identity. What was this man doing? Why are you role-playing for no reason? Instead of Ming Zun, he came here to be a teacher of the Saint Academy? Was he that free? But very quickly, Luo Qingtong remembered how Yi Qianxian aggressively ran over to ask her about Yu Si Huang. Did this man deliberately hide his identity and stay by her side to protect her? Luo Qingtong thought so. She was both angry and amused. At the same time, she felt a little sweet in her heart. And Yi Qianxian still didn't know that his identity had been seen through by Luo Qingtong. When he came, he specially wrapped his entire body with energy to ensure that Luo Qingtong couldn't see through him. At this moment, he looked at Luo Qingtong indifferently and said, "Naturally, it's to check the strength of the energy in your body. If it's not like this, how would I know which part of your body needs to be strengthened? Is that so?" Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian and the corners of her lips curled up. This man spoke as if he was telling the truth. If Luo Qingtong hadn't already seen through his identity, she probably wouldn't have doubted his words. In reality, with this man's strength, why would he need to touch a little to check the strength of the energy in her body? Chapter 936. With that thought in mind, Luo Qingtong instantly gritted her teeth. This man, did he really like to act? She would fulfill his wish. With that thought in mind, Luo Qingtong's lips suddenly curved into a beautiful smile. So that's how it is. Then I've really misunderstood you, Chief Instructor. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she placed Yi Qianxian's hand back on her waist. With a faint smile on her lips, she looked at Yi Qianxian with an apologetic and embarrassed gaze. Since that's the case, please feel me properly, Chief Instructor. Remember, don't miss anything. Otherwise, if there's something wrong with the information you've investigated, I won't be able to smoothly improve my strength. Thank you, Instructor. As Luo Qingtong spoke, Yi Qianxian's heart instantly felt stifled. He looked at the apologetic expression on the young girl's face and his heart instantly felt stifled. He just wanted to tease this woman and see her explode in anger. However, when he saw that she wasn't angry and even allowed him to touch her, Yi Qianxian couldn't feel happy at all. Okay? He knew that Chief Instructor Yi Luo was him. However, Luo Qingtong and the others didn't know. This woman actually allowed another man to touch her? Even if he wanted to improve his strength, she wouldn't allow it. Yi Qianxian felt a wave of stifled anger in his heart. The stifling anger in his heart made his disguised face look even colder and colder. All right. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a word from between his teeth. If it weren't for the fact that he still remembered that his identity was Yi Qianxian and not Yi Qianxian, and that this wasn't the right place to be, he would have already pressed the young girl in front of him into his arms and ruthlessly punished her. This woman was really, coming here personally to stand guard was indeed the right thing to do. Otherwise, if she wasn't careful, who knew how many rotten peach blossoms she would attract? Yi Qianxian felt suffocated. He looked coldly at Luo Qingtong and continued to stroke her back. But this time he wasn't in the mood to tease Luo Qingtong like before. His movements were very fast and there wasn't a trace of ambiguity. Luo Qingtong snickered in her heart when she sensed the low pressure coming from the man's body. The smile on her lips grew wider and wider. She paused midway and asked Yi Qianxian, "Chief Instructor, is my aura weak? Do you want to take a closer look?" And here, Chief Instructor, when my aura passed by, my meridians were faintly swollen and painful. Was it because I was injured before? Do you want to touch more for me? As Luo Qingtong's voice continued to ring out, Yi Qianxian's face turned darker and darker. There was no other reason. When Luo Qingtong stopped, there were some places that just happened to be sensitive areas on the girl's body. If this was Yi Qianxian's original identity, he would of course be happy that Luo Qingtong was cooperating with him. How comfortable would it be to have a soft and fragrant jade in his arms? But unfortunately he was now Yi Luo. When he thought about how he was touching Luo Qingtong's body as a stranger, even if they were separated by a thick robe, he felt a wave of displeasure in his heart. But this was a trap that he had dug for himself. Who asked him to tell Luo Qingtong that if he didn't understand the situation inside her body, it wouldn't be easy for her to improve her strength. Now he had dug himself into a trap. Yi Qianxian finished examining Luo Qingtong's body with a dark expression and prepared to leave without saying a word. Chapter 937. Chief Instructor, aren't you going to check for the others? Are you too tired? Then I'll check for them on your behalf. Luo Qingtong had just finished speaking when the veins on Yi Qianxian's forehead popped. She was going to check for them? Just like how he had treated her? Yi Qianxian's face instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot when he thought of how his hands had roamed all over Luo Qingtong's body and how she would treat the others the same way he had treated her. No. He flung his sleeves and said through gritted teeth, "They don't need it." What? Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian's gloomy face that was as black as the bottom of a pot. She was laughing so hard in her heart that she was about to fall over. However, on the surface she looked puzzled and innocent. She loved to see Yi Qianxian so angry that he wanted to explode but couldn't do anything about it. She wanted him to hide his identity and flirt with her. Because I can only help one person raise their strength by one realm at a time. You want to give up this opportunity? Yi Qianxian looked at her with a dark expression. Luo Qingtong stuck out her tongue and didn't say anything. Although she really wanted to tease the man again, it would be troublesome if she accidentally overdid it. Luo Qingtong felt that it was better to take it easy. If the man found out that she had already discovered his identity and was still teasing him, she didn't know how angry he would be. Most importantly, Luo Qingtong hadn't had enough fun yet. With that thought, Luo Qingtong immediately responded obediently and didn't walk over to Yuan Hu and the others. She was just putting on an act. If she really touched them in front of Yi Qianxian, she was afraid that the man wouldn't even care about his disguise and would directly attack her. How could she let Yi Qianxian do that? Seeing that Luo Qingtong had finally calmed down, Yi Qianxian snorted coldly. Without saying anything he turned and left. He was so infuriated by Luo Qingtong that he didn't want to stay here any longer. She would settle the score with this woman when she got back. Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth. Oh my god, that scared me to death. It wasn't until Yi Qianxian's figure disappeared from everyone's sight that someone patted his chest and exclaimed, "Yes, the chief instructor's aura is so scary. It's even scarier than when the Grand Principal and the others are angry." Everyone was shocked. When Luo Qingtong was interacting with Yi Qianxian, the latter's aura was terrifying. Except for Luo Qingtong, the others were all shocked to the spot. It was as if they were being stared at by an ancient fierce beast. They didn't even dare to move. They were envious of Luo Qingtong for being able to interact with Yi Qianxian so easily. "Boss, you're still the best. The chief instructor has such a terrifying aura, yet you were able to chat so happily with him." Yuan Hu and the others patted their chests and said, "Not at all." Luo Qingtong's lips curled up. She couldn't help but laugh when she thought of the man's dark face and violent mood before he left. The chief instructor, he is quite interesting. And he's very cute. Ah. With that kind of EQ, the man still wanted to hide his identity and tease her. "Let's see how I tease him until he starts to doubt his life." Luo Qingtong laughed as she walked out with Yuan Hu and the others. "Let's go, we'll go back first and deal with the Heavenly Demon group. Also, as a reward for the Guiyuan group helping us this time, send a third of the resources to the Guiyuan group. Say that it's my thanks to the Crown Prince." She was thanking him for giving her the medicine and protecting Yuan Hu and the others. She said that she would return the favor to Ma Chenyi. Chapter 938. Yes. Yuan Hu and the rest left excitedly. This time Luo Qingtong really helped them vent their anger. Not only that, but she also got so many good things. Not only did they snatch back the resources that the Dragon Group's people had snatched away from them, but they also cheated the Dragon Group's people. Thinking of the Dragon Corps' faces when they paid for the resources, Yuan Hu and the rest were indescribably happy. Not to mention forcing Yuan Mo and Su Jinhua to kneel and apologize. He felt really good about venting his anger. Yuan Hu, Ling Tianhan, and the others all had proud expressions on their faces. However, at the same time they were also worried. Luo Qingtong had treated the dragon group, Yuanma and the others like that. Would the latter use even more shameless tricks? Especially the Dragon Corps people. Behind them was the martial king. Thinking this, they all made up their minds to cultivate properly. In the future they wouldn't let Luo Qingtong fight alone. Every time they had to rely on their boss to get justice for them. They had enough of being a burden. Being taken in as a closed-door student by the chief instructor was one of their chances. When the time came they would train properly and not disappoint their boss. They wouldn't let anyone get past them and attack their boss. Everyone made up their minds. In the Seoul Institute, the Seoul Institute's head teacher brought Yuan Mo and Su Jinhua back. Before he could reprimand them, the Grand Dean arrived. After being warned and forced to promise that he wouldn't use his power and authority to harm Luo Qingtong, Su Deheng sent the Grand Dean away and knocked Yuan Mo to the ground. Pa! Yuan Mo's face was slapped harshly by him. Evil disciple, kneel down. Su Deheng's face was filled with anger. He had never been so humiliated like today. All of this was because of that Luo Qingtong. And this proud student in front of him was the fiancé of that Luo Qingtong. No matter how the other party trampled on him, he still refused to break off the engagement. The Seoul Institute's great teacher used to think that Yuan Ma was someone who valued relationships and kept his promises. But now he only felt shame and resentment. If you still treat me as your teacher, then divorce Luo Qingtong after the gambling match. Su Deheng slammed the armrest of his seat heavily. The armrest of the gold and iron Jinan wood was smashed into pieces almost instantly under his unrestrained strength. Could be seen how angry he was. Yes, I understand, teacher. Yuan Mo lowered his head, kneeling on the ground. His fingernails dug into his palms. He didn't want to give up on Luo Qingtong, but he also couldn't give up on the support of the Seoul Institute's great teacher. After entering the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy, he became one of the most sought-after genius experts in the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy's heavenly palace in a short period of time. He was highly valued by the martial king. Most of this was because of Su Deheng. As the Seoul Institute's great teacher, Su Deheng's identity and strength were Yuanma's greatest support. If he lost his support and angered him, Yuanma would find it difficult to move an inch in the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy. To Yuanma this was something he couldn't accept. Moreover, he still needed to rely on Su Deheng to stand out in the distinguished meeting half a year later. Chapter 939. Thinking of the benefits she could bring him in the future, Yuanma gritted his teeth and kowtowed heavily to Su Deheng. He said coldly, "Teacher, don't worry. Luo Qingtong humiliated you like this. I won't let her go. I'll personally cripple her strength in the duel 1 month later and make her apologize to you on her knees. I'll help you vent your anger." He didn't mention the cancellation of the engagement. Yuanma's idea was to cripple Luo Qingtong's strength so that she could only leave the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. In this case he could quietly capture Luo Qingtong and imprison her in a place no one knew about. No matter what, Yuanma wouldn't give up on Luo Qingtong. She could only be his wife. It didn't matter if she was just a decoration or an empty shell. She had to stay by his side. Yuanma's heart was cold. "Luo Qingtong, I gave you a chance. Since you didn't care about it, don't blame me for destroying you." His words made Su Deheng's expression soften a little. The latter's purple-red face eased a little. He looked at him and said coldly, "I hope you can do it. Otherwise, don't call me teacher in the future." While Yuanma and Su Deheng were talking, Tiger Cub led a group of people back to the Dragon Group's encampment and smashed the main hall into smithereens. "Bastard." Tiger Cub's face was extremely angry. "That Luo Qingtong is too much. She's too much." Ever since Tiger Cub rose with Mo Qinshin, he had never been humiliated as much as today. The Dragon Regiment was completely humiliated today. They had mocked Luo Qingtong for overestimating herself, and now they were slapped in the face. If that was all, it would be fine. Outsiders wouldn't lose anything by talking about it. But the bad thing was that Luo Qingtong came prepared this time. Thinking about the huge amount of resources he had to pay this time, Tiger Cub's heart ached. He could already foresee the severe punishment he would receive when Her Highness King Wu returns. And all of this was brought about by Luo Qingtong. Even the entire Dragon Group and King Wu had become the laughingstock of the holy court of the Empire of Qin. The more Tong Hu thought about it, the angrier he got. The members of the Dragon Group also had heavy expressions on their faces. They didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be so capable. Which new student didn't tuck their tail between their legs when they first entered the school? Except for that crazy idiot from the Martial Arts Institute. Luo Qingtong did the exact opposite. She was unimaginably high profile and slapped them in the face as soon as she arrived. At this moment they couldn't even raise their heads. Such humiliation caused them to feel extremely sullen and angry. Deputy Regiment Commander, I think we should go directly to His Highness King Wu and ask him if he wants to make a move on the Guiyuan Regiment now. A member of the Dragon Group said angrily, that Luo Qingtong's backer is the Crown Prince and the Guiyuan Regiment. Without the Guiyuan Regiment, let's see how arrogant she can be. By then she will have to spit out all the resources that she took. That's right. The other members of the Dragon Group agreed. Previously, they were afraid of taking action because Luo Qingtong controlled the cultivation array of the Heavenly Hall's training ground and didn't allow them to enter. Therefore they temporarily compromised and gave those resources to Luo Qingtong. But now Luo Qingtong couldn't use that to threaten them. As long as they got rid of the Guiyuan Regiment, wouldn't Luo Qingtong be at their disposal? Chapter 940. Don't worry. Tong, whose voice was cold. His expression was extremely gloomy. His Highness King Wu is making his final breakthrough. When he comes back, he might be able to suppress the Crown Prince and become the #1 person in the Holy Court. We can't disturb him. Let's put this matter aside for the time being. Luo Qingtong and the others can't do anything. Let them be arrogant for a while. When His Highness King Wu comes back, let's see how they'll die. Tong, whose voice was cold. The others thought the same and immediately suppressed the resentment in their hearts. While the people from the Dragon Regiment and Yuan Ma were depressed, Luo Qingtong's matter spread throughout the Holy Court of the Empire of Qin. Almost everyone knew. There was a new student called Luo Qingtong who took a 3-month leave. When she came back, the first elder and the elders of the Holy Court had no choice but to give in. She lowered her head to the Grand Principal. Not only that, but she also directly went against the Dragon Regiment. When everyone thought she would lose, she didn't rely on anyone and forced the entire Dragon Regiment to lower their heads. When the people from the Holy Court of the Empire of Qin who weren't present heard this, their first reaction was disbelief. Not to mention that not only did Luo Qingtong force the Dragon Regiment to lower their heads, but she also obtained a large amount of resources and made the Dragon Regiment, Yuan Ma and the others kneel down. As the news spread, everyone who heard about it was dumbfounded. In the Guiyuan Regiment, Ma Chenyi was playing chess with the experts under his command. The latter was the grandson of a first-class official in the imperial court and was also Ma Chenyi's loyal follower. If he wasn't injured this time, he would have gone with the others to help Luo Qingtong. Like the others, he was also very dissatisfied with Ma Chenyi's desperate help to Luo Qingtong. Your Highness, if you really like this Luo Qingtong, you can just issue a decree to bring her into the palace. Why do you have to go through so much trouble? He frowned. The people we sent out this time are the top experts and core members of our side. Conflict with the Dragon Corps is unavoidable. Your body hasn't recovered yet. Isn't this giving Mo Qinxian an opportunity? And that Luo Qingtong really doesn't know when to advance or retreat. She's just a new student. She doesn't have any status or influence. What right does she have to go against the Dragon Group? Now she wants us, the Dragon Group, to clean up her mess. As he said this, his words revealed his great dissatisfaction with Luo Qingtong. Ma Chenyi glanced at him indifferently and said nothing. Luo Qingtong had neither status nor power? If he knew the real identity of Luo Qingtong, he wouldn't say so. She was the Holy Princess of Chu and was valued by the royal family of Chu and the Blackfield. How could she be humiliated? If Luo Qingtong could tolerate this, she would be ridiculed in the future when her identity was exposed. What's more, who said that Luo Qingtong couldn't defeat the Dragon Group? Even Great Yong coveted the throne of Chu and was defeated by Luo Qingtong, not to mention the Dragon Group. Ma Chenyi didn't worry about what would happen to his people if they followed Luo Qingtong. He had a hunch that this time the people of the Dragon Group would be taught a lesson by Luo Qingtong. He just didn't know what the other party would give him as a big gift. Chapter 941. The genius who was playing chess with him had just finished speaking, and the dissatisfaction on his face had not dissipated, when a surprised voice came from outside. Everything that Luo Qingtong had done, no matter how big or small, was reported by the Guiyuan team members who had rushed back in high spirits. Your Highness, you really have a good eye this time. Yes. Your Highness, you did not see the ugly faces of the people from the Dragon team. My God, that feeling was like drinking ice water on a hot day. One word, awesome. Haha. Hearing the words of the Guiyuan team member, the others all followed and laughed loudly. And the genius, who was extremely dissatisfied with Luo Qingtong just now, after hearing everyone's words, was completely dumbfounded. He could not believe that Luo Qingtong was actually so powerful. She had such means. And Ma Chenye's pair of quiet and elegant eyes suddenly burst out with a strong light. The things that Luo Qingtong had done were completely out of his expectations. He felt that he had overestimated Luo Qingtong, but he did not think that the girl's actions would completely break his understanding. Such means she was really worthy of being the holy conferred princess who had relied on her own ability to be recognized by the great Chu sacred dynasty. Ma Chenye's expression was indifferent as he smiled lightly. And while the Gui Yuan team members were excited and rejoicing, in Yu Wenma's courtyard, Lu Long and the others were full of despair. After being sent over by Ling Tianhan and the others, they had been recuperating here. The group originally thought that they would be fine after recuperating. However, when their internal injuries had healed, they realized that there was a problem with the circulation of energy in their bodies. They did not know what was going on, but when the energy in their bodies passed by the places where they had been injured, it would inexplicably stagnate for a while. This stagnation caused them to be unable to unleash their strength completely. In a battle, a little bit of hesitation and a mistake in response would cause them to lose the battle and even their lives. Not to mention such a big problem and weakness of stagnation of energy. The group had lost their qualifications as heaven-rank students. They might not even be able to retain their qualifications as earth-rank students. Only now did they realize what Luo Qingtong meant when she said, "I guarantee that they won't recover." They had also asked the sacred teacher of the Medicine Institute to take a look. They even cried and complained that this might be Luo Qingtong's revenge. She was the one who caused the problems in their bodies. But in the end they couldn't find anything. Everyone thought that they were deliberately slandering Luo Qingtong. Lu Long and the others were about to go crazy. At this moment, the news of Luo Qingtong making the members of the Dragon Regiment lower their heads and kneel down to apologize spread. Everyone's faces were filled with despair. Especially the two who betrayed Ling Tianhan and joined Yu Wenma, and bullied Ling Tianhan and the others with Lu Long and the others from Tianyu branch. They thought that by relying on Yu Wenma, they had obtained a backer and would be able to achieve a meteoric rise. But who would have thought that he would end up like this? As for Su Xiaoxiao and the others, after Luo Qingtong's arrival, they jumped up and became the targets of envy and jealousy. It was said that they had all been taken in by the new chief instructor as closed-door students. And that chief instructor was even praised by the Grand Supreme Dean himself, saying that he was very powerful. Thinking of this, the two of them spat out a mouthful of blood, rolled their eyes and fainted. Luo Qingtong did not know about this at all. Chapter 942. Bang! As soon as Luo Qingtong went back, she was pressed against the wall by a sulking man. "Where did you go today?" Yi Qianming's face was dark. "I went to teach someone a lesson." Hearing Yi Qianming's question, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. "What's wrong?" she asked deliberately and put her hand on the man's neck. "Why are you unhappy?" Of course Yi Qianming was unhappy. He disguised himself as Yi Luo and followed Luo Qingtong around. He wanted to tease Luo Qingtong and see her defeated look. But, thinking of how the girl let him do whatever he wanted, Yi Qianming was angry. This woman, although he knew that it was him, she didn't know, right? How could she be so obedient? In front of him she was so cunning and willful, but in front of others she was so obedient. Yi Qianming was really angry when he thought about it. He leaned over and bit the girl's lips. "What else?" he asked with a cold snort. "Nothing else." Luo Qingtong was about to suffer internal injuries from holding back her laughter. This man deserved it. Who asked him to hide his identity to deceive her? She wanted him to die. "I heard that you found a new instructor and became his last disciple?" Yi Qianming said coldly. "Yes." Luo Qingtong said with a smile. "Speaking of which, the chief instructor is very good. He said that he would help me to improve my strength to the martial emperor realm within a month." "Lord, do you think that I am very lucky to have met such a chief instructor?" Luo Qingtong's words were purposely laced with admiration and joy. Yi Qianming heard this and exploded in an instant. "You like him very much?" he said with a cold face and gritted his teeth. "Yes." Luo Qingtong nodded with a smile. "The chief instructor is so good. Of course I like him." "Ah, you really believe it?" Luo Qingtong said and suddenly put her hands around the man's neck and kissed him on the lips. "Don't worry, I didn't. If I have to like someone, it's you." Luo Qingtong's words instantly eased Yi Qianming's expression. He looked at the mischievous girl in front of him and couldn't help but pull her into his arms. She really is a demon. A casual sentence could affect his thoughts and emotions, but he was still willing to endure it. In the future, you're not allowed to casually get close to other men. The same goes for the chief instructor. Yi Qinming said coldly. He had completely forgotten that he was also the chief instructor. Hearing this, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly turned. How could this be? She wasn't done yet. This man had first changed his identity to flirt with her. Would he stop just like that? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong suddenly said, that won't do. Chief instructor still needs to improve my strength. Furthermore, Luo Qingtong said with a sly smile, he gives me a very familiar feeling. My lord, do you think he is someone I know? Or is he someone I know? If he had the ability, he had to admit that he was the chief instructor. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to stop her from investigating the other party's identity. Yi Qinming didn't speak after hearing this. How could he admit that the man was him? When Luo Qingtong asked him why he had to hide his identity and stay by her side, what would he say? Yi Qinming would never admit to such a thing that damaged his dignity as the Dark Lord. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hidden his identity and stayed by Luo Qingtong's side. Sleep. Chapter 943. Luo Qingtong held on to his waist while trying to hold back her laughter. The two snuggled up to each other and soon fell asleep. In the next few days, Luo Qingtong was busy dealing with the Heavenly Demon Group and the resources. Because they knew that Luo Qingtong went against the Dragon Group for Su Xiaoxiao, many people in the Empire of Qin wanted to join the Heavenly Demon Group. Especially those who had been bullied by the Dragon Group in the past and even caused their forces to disband. In the past, they did not want to join the Heavenly Demon Group because they did not think highly of Luo Qingtong. After all, they did not think that Luo Qingtong was qualified to be compared to Mo Qinchuan's Dragon Group. King Wu was very popular now. With the Crown Prince's silence, the future ruler of the Empire of Qin should be Mo Qinxian. The Empire of Qin would also be his world in the future. Under such circumstances, who would dare to offend the Dragon Group? But Luo Qingtong had offended her. Not only did she offend them, but she also trampled on the Dragon Group. Everyone thought that she would be unlucky, but in the end, the Dragon Group was the unlucky one. With such ability, most people knew about Luo Qingtong and were willing to join her Heavenly Demon Group. After all, the Crown Prince's Gui Yuan Group had too many scruples and could not go against the Dragon Group as they wished. But Luo Qingtong could. Plus, she had a lot of cultivation resources in her hands, so everyone rushed to her side. In the past few days, the door of Luo Qingtong's courtyard was almost broken by people. But this time, Luo Qingtong was not like the time when she wanted to trick the Dragon Group. She did not reject anyone. She gave Su Xiaoxiao and the others the right to evaluate the recruitment, and asked them to be strict. Luo Qingtong was protective, but she did not want to be a shield and a tool for revenge. Want to be her people and be under her protection? Yes. First, send loyalty and fanaticism. Luo Qingtong would rather go without than have something substandard. Moreover, she had never set her eyes on the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. This place was just a springboard for her. She thought of the other side, that Yi Qianming and the others came to, thinking of that man's inhuman strength. Luo Qingtong lost interest in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. Her goal was to catch up with that man. Then she would openly announce to everyone that he was Luo Qingtong's man. No one is allowed to covet it. Yi Qianming was also busy with Luo Qingtong. She had no idea what he was doing these days. It was not until 3 days later that Luo Qingtong received the news from Yuan Hu. Boss. The chief instructor wants us to gather at the Sky Palace's training ground. The group of people rushed to the empty space in the Heavenly Hall's training ground. Yi Qianming, disguised as Yi Luo, was already waiting there. Seeing Luo Qingtong and the others, he didn't waste any time and directly said to them, "Follow me." The group of people followed him and left. Outside the holy capital of the Empire of Qin, in the 100,000 mountains, Yuan Hu and the others looked at the huge waterfall opposite them in shock. Their mouths instantly formed an O shape. Oh my God! Their faces were filled with shock as they looked at the huge waterfall that seemed to fall from the top of a mountain that was thousands of feet high. The water surged like a roaring dragon, carrying its thick body as it flew down from the top of the mountain that was thousands of feet high. Boom boom boom. The huge explosion and the splashes of water that were several feet high shocked everyone's eyes. Oh my God! Chapter 944. What surprised everyone even more was that the rocks at the top of the waterfall were so sharp that they looked like they were carved out by a knife. The pool at the bottom of the waterfall also looked like it was newly formed. There were no water plants or mud that had accumulated for a long time. What surprised everyone even more was that in the middle of the waterfall, there seemed to be something faintly blocking it. It looked like a small flight of stairs. Oh my God! Could it be that this waterfall was man-made? Everyone's eyes widened as they thought of this. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but glance at the man who was standing with his hands behind his back. He disappeared for the past few days because he was busy with this? Luo Qingtong's heart was filled with warmth. Every time she thought that Yi Qianming was good enough to her, he would use his actions to tell her that it wasn't enough. It was far from enough. This will be your training ground from now on. Yi Qianming's words were very concise and calm. 1 month I will only teach you for 1 month. How much you can learn will depend on yourselves. The reason why Yi Qianming appeared to teach in the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin was because of Luo Qingtong. The girl needed a month to improve her strength, so he would accompany her for a month. He wouldn't waste any other time on anyone else. How much these people could learn would depend on their own abilities. Bang! As soon as Yi Qianming finished speaking, there was a boom as he waved his right sleeve. In an instant, an invisible wind swept out and cut the thick waterfall into 2 halves. Time and space seemed to have stopped. The waterfall was cut into 2 halves and suspended in the air, revealing the protruding stone steps on the stone wall. Do you see those stone steps? Yi Qianming's gaze swept past Luo Qingtong. From 1 to 10 it's exactly 10 steps. The longer you can stay under the pressure of the waterfall, the greater the pressure and the greater the chance of a breakthrough. Usually Yi Qianming wouldn't talk so much, but he was now Yi Luo and had to help this woman improve her strength. Naturally, he had to explain everything in detail. Just as he finished speaking, the waterfall that seemed to be silently floating in the air also came crashing down with a loud bang and connected with each other once again. The sound of the waterfall was like thunder and drums. Everyone's face turned pale when they heard Yi Qianming's words. Oh my God! Cultivating under this waterfall? And he still had to endure the bombardment of the thunder and the sound of water? Damn it, Chief Instructor, this wasn't training, this was killing. Even the geniuses of the Guiyuan group who were on the Soaring Dragon list turned pale when they heard this. The power of this waterfall should be enough to seriously injure the weaker students, right? It was impossible to withstand the pressure and cultivate under the waterfall without skills. The chief instructor's training method was too ruthless. But then, their foundation, their strength, without damaging their foundation, their strength. After all, this was a life and death experience in disguise. They were all seeking breakthroughs in desperate situations. The chief instructor really put a lot of thought into this. In fact, it was the same. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianming wouldn't have worried about this. Wanting to improve their strength in a short time without damaging their foundation? Yes. Fight with him every day and break through between life and death. Bei Qing and Feng Yu's strength were trained this way. But Luo Qingtong, how could Yi Qianming bear to hit her? Not to mention kill her. Chapter 945. Bang! Everyone finally mustered up their courage. After all, they were the elites of their respective families. Even if they lost, they would not lose their confidence. Plop. The first person went up the stone steps. However, as soon as his figure appeared on the first stone step, his body was instantly swept down by the water flow with a bang, causing him to instantly fall down from the top of the stone steps. No. It's too slippery. The impact of the water current is too strong. It's comparable to the attack of the Martial King realm. I can't stand on it at all. The student of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin shouted as he swam in the underground pool. Everyone's expression changed at once when they heard this. The attack of the water current was so strong? While everyone was shocked, Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up instantly. The attack of the water current was so strong, and it was a completely disordered attack. Therefore, they needed to circulate the power in their bodies all the time. They had to strengthen it when they needed to and disperse it when they needed to. In this way, the power in their bodies would become more and more harmonious, and they would be able to control it more and more easily. If this went on, the chances of a breakthrough would naturally be higher and higher. She knew it. Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up slightly. Almost instantly, she jumped up from where she was and rushed to the first stone step at the edge of the waterfall. Let me try. Her eyes were shining brightly. Boom. Luo Qingtong had just jumped onto the stairs when she felt a force that could topple the river and overturn the sea, bombarding her continuously. It was still an understatement to say that it was comparable to the attack of the Martial King realm. With so many water currents gathered together, the attack power was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. When it was strong, it was close to the attack of the Martial Royal realm. Boom boom boom. Luo Qingtong tried her best to circulate the power in her body. She could not use her pupil technique at all. Even if she could, it was too late. The water currents were attacking her continuously, and the power of each part was not the same at all. Boom boom boom. Luo Qingtong instinctively circulated the power in her body to resist. The power of the water currents hit her body and spread to her limbs and bones. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, 10 breaths. Bang! Luo Qingtong's figure was rushed down the stairs. The next second he fell into the water with a splash. Boss. Yuan Hu and the others quickly surrounded him. I'm fine. Luo Qingtong climbed out of the pool. The young girl's figure was exquisite. She was only 15 or 16 years old, and was in the prime of her life. After her robe was wet, it stuck to her body, outlining the contours of her body that were just beginning to develop. It was either concave or convex, revealing a different kind of seduction amidst the inexperience. The moment Yi Qianxian saw it, his eyes darkened. With a swish, he tossed his robe to the girl, covering her wet body and hiding the seductive scene that could make a saint go crazy. What are you all doing here? All of you, go up and train yourselves. As he spoke, he chased them away. Luo Qingtong looked at the man like a large carnivore, protecting his food and driving away all the people who might covet his delicious food. Suddenly, there was a burst of laughter in her heart. Chief Instructor, how's my performance? She deliberately tugged at the robe that the man draped over her body. Chapter 946. Very good. Yi Qianxian stared at the girl's exposed snow-white skin and seductive curves with a burning gaze. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Damn it. Why does this woman look so seductive when she's wet? Luo Qingtong's robe was actually very thick and of good quality. Although it was tightly ironed and wrapped around her body, the places that should be exposed weren't exposed at all. But for some reason Yi Qianxian felt that this scene was even more irresistible and seductive than when she was naked. It made him want to tear off her clothes at all costs. Yi Qianxian's throat moved. Just as he was about to move, he remembered that his current identity wasn't Ming Zun of the Black Field, but the chief instructor of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin Yi Luo. This thought was like a bucket of cold water that extinguished the fire in his heart. Thinking about how Luo Qingtong was so seductive in front of other men, even if that man was himself, Yi Qianxian still felt depressed. But he couldn't say anything about Luo Qingtong. She was wearing her clothes properly and hadn't done anything. With this thought, Yi Qianxian felt even more depressed. Get up, put on a few more clothes and start training again. At this moment, Yi Qianxian started to regret making such a waterfall for Luo Qingtong to train. Even if he wanted to do it, he should have brought Luo Qingtong to train alone. But this way he wouldn't be able to achieve his goal of hiding his identity. Yi Qianxian felt a burst of irritation as he thought about it. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian's appearance and snickered in her heart. Cough. Okay. She agreed and turned around. Then she pulled on Yi Qianxian's sleeve. Wait, instructor. She looked at Yi Qianxian with a smile. Then she lifted her wet hair and tossed it to the side. My hair is tangled with a hairpin. Instructor, can you help me fix it? She was trying so hard to stifle her laughter that she almost suffered internal injuries. The girl's hair was soft and smooth, like a waterfall that cascaded down. However, because she didn't know that she was going to train in the waterfall this time, she didn't take off the hairpin. It tangled with her hair, making it a little messy. Yi Qianxian's face was tense as he watched the young girl lift up one side of her hair. Her black, satin-like hair made Luo Qingtong's snow-white skin appear even more tender and white. Because she wanted Yi Qianxian to help her remove the hairpin that was wrapped around her hair, Luo Qingtong slightly lowered her head, making her neck look even more white and slender. Looking down from his angle, he could see the tender whiteness of the girl's neck spreading all the way down until it disappeared into her slightly open lapel. That faintly discernible style and snow-white fullness made Yi Qianxian's eyes darken. He stretched out his hands stiffly and took off the hairpin that was wrapped around the girl's hair one by one. His entire person was in a state of ice and fire. He was burning because of Luo Qingtong's appearance at this moment, but he was also depressed and cold because his identity was not his Blackfield's Ming Zun. On one hand he was so depressed that he was about to explode. On the other hand he couldn't help but stare at Luo Qingtong. This woman was really born to be his nemesis. Yi Qianxian didn't know why he had to endure this kind of torture. Chapter 947. Yi Qianxian stiffly removed all the hairpins and beads from Luo Qingtong's head. It was clearly something that could be done in 2 or 3 moves, but it took him several breaths of time. During this period, his fingers accidentally touched Luo Qingtong's snow-white and tender skin several times, and he almost couldn't control himself on the spot. He coldly helped Luo Qingtong remove all the hairpins and beads, and then said in a hoarse voice, "It's done. In addition, starting tomorrow, you're not allowed to wear this kind of thing." Yi Qianxian was angry that she was so close to another man. What if today's chief instructor wasn't him? Thinking of this, he felt a burst of depression in his heart. However, he didn't know that if this chief instructor wasn't him, Luo Qingtong wouldn't even have the slightest intention of teasing him. All her gentleness and craftiness were given to him. Could it be that he thought that any man could get Luo Qingtong's favor? If that was the case, then in the 24th century the men around Luo Qingtong could line up around the earth. As the most powerful eye technique master in the ability world, countless countries and organizations were afraid of her. They were afraid that the other party would take a fancy to their little assets. Luo Qingtong never lacked people who would volunteer to sleep with her. Especially when she was a very beautiful woman. Even in the 24th century, where handsome men and beautiful women gathered, Luo Qingtong was a natural beauty that men couldn't forget. Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian's sullen face as he turned around and left. That dark face could drip water, and it looked like a storm was coming. Luo Qingtong stifled a burst of laughter in her heart. In the end, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. Before she was discovered by Yi Qianren, she wrapped the man's robe tightly around her waist and tied it around her waist. With a swish, her figure flew to the stone platform suspended in the middle of the waterfall and continued the training. The waterfall training that Yi Qianxian specially created for her was really very suitable for Luo Qingtong's current situation. Luo Qingtong had just fought against the water flow once, and immediately understood the benefits of this waterfall training. Under the impact of the waterfall, all the strength in her body was tempered. Under such circumstances, as long as she persevered in the training, the longer she stayed on the waterfall, the stronger the strength in her body would be. In this way, the strength in her body could continue to grow in an incomparably solid situation. In an instant, Luo Qingtong understood why Yi Qianxian created this waterfall training ground for her. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at the man standing by the side and watching her tall figure. Her heart was filled with an indescribable warmth and joy. So this was the feeling of being loved and cherished in the palm of someone's hands? Luo Qingtong only felt that she had never been so happy and relaxed. No matter what she did, there would be a man standing behind her to support her and watch her move forward step by step. Climb high. Stand by his side. This feeling was really great. Haha. Luo Qingtong's voice was cheerful, hiding the snicker that she just couldn't help laughing. Chapter 948. Yi Qianxian's face had always been dark. But at this moment, hearing the girl's laughter and the joy in her voice, his lips couldn't help but curl up slightly. That pair of icy cold eyes also instantly warmed up, and a hint of a smile seeped out from within. It's good that this woman likes this place. He didn't think so much and finally decided on this waterfall training place for her in vain. Yi Qianxian hacked out the thousands of feet cliff here. The surging water of the waterfall was diverted from other places by him. It was all for the sake of creating an extremely suitable training ground for Luo Qingtong, allowing her to increase her strength to the greatest extent. She wanted to defeat Yuan Ma fair and square, so Yi Qianxian did his best to pave the way for her. She wanted to walk towards him step by step, so he stood on top of the mountains, protecting her, spoiling her, and watching her approach him step by step. She had her pride, so he would protect her pride. He was willing to be her strongest and most solid support. Rumble. Luo Qingtong's figure kept jumping up the stairs of the waterfall. Then, under the impact of the powerful waterfall, she fell down again and again. Once, twice, thrice, Luo Qingtong fell down the stairs again and again. Under the waterfall's pool, she was exhausted and bruised all over. But the light in her eyes became brighter and brighter. She could stay on the stone steps longer and longer. 10 breaths, 20 breaths, 50 breaths, 100 breaths. With each breath, Luo Qingtong became more and more proficient in using the power in her body. The power in her body became more and more solid and vigorous under the tempering of the waterfall. Finally, she broke through naturally. Rumble. For nearly a month, Luo Qingtong had been training in the waterfall. She didn't even go back to the sacred court. Anyway, Yi Qianxian was the chief instructor. With a casual word, no one would pursue the matter of them leaving the sacred court. The others also cherished this rare opportunity very much, especially those who grew up in the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. They didn't know why such a waterfall that they had never even heard of would suddenly appear near the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. Moreover, it was so suitable for their training. However, no matter how they thought about it, the chief instructor in front of them had something to do with it. This made them respect Yi Qianren, and at the same time, they treasured this opportunity even more. They didn't know why, but they had a feeling that this waterfall might disappear in a month's time. Although he didn't know where this feeling came from, how could a huge waterfall disappear just like that? However, they still worked even harder to cultivate. As for Yuan Hu and the others, there was no need to even mention them. They didn't want to be a burden to Luo Qingtong anymore. The girl was clearly getting stronger and stronger, and she was also getting further and further away. If they didn't work harder, even if Luo Qingtong didn't say that she didn't want them, they would be too embarrassed to stay by her side. The group of people didn't want to be left behind by Luo Qingtong at all. Therefore they trained hard. At least Luo Qingtong still had her Do technique. When she was blasted into the pool by the waterfall, she could slightly adjust the angle and strength so that she wouldn't fall so miserably. However, Yuan Hu and the others were completely smashing down. Chapter 949. Under such circumstances, the group of people still trained with all their might. If Luo Qingtong hadn't refined the medicinal liquid for them, many of them would have been crippled. Just like that, Luo Qingtong's and the others' abilities continued to solidify and increase under the bombardment. At the same time as the battle between Luo Qingtong and Yuan Mo was approaching, a person appeared in the encampment of the Heavenly Palace Dragon Group of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. Your Highness King Wu. Seeing the young man striding into the hall with a gloomy face, Tong Hu and the rest all stood up in surprise. 2 days ago they received the news that King Wu would be back soon. They didn't expect to see him today. Yes. Mo Qinshuan's voice was cold. He walked directly to the main seat in the hall and sat down. His face was gloomy from the beginning. Tong Hu and the others were originally very happy about Mo Qinshuan's return. However, when they saw that his face was so pale, their expressions changed from joy to silence. Your Highness. Suddenly, a member of the dragon group whispered, Your strength didn't improve? The group of people looked at Mo Qinshuan and realized that his strength and aura didn't improve at all compared to when he left. Not only that, but he even weakened? The group of people looked at each other and didn't know what was going on. Didn't His Highness say that he was 100% sure that he could break through this time? They were counting on him to suppress the Crown Prince as soon as he came back. Unexpectedly, His Highness's strength didn't improve at all. Hearing someone mention it, Mo Qinshuan's anger flared up. He was very confident that he would break through this time. Because he had absorbed almost all of Ma Qianye's dragon energy. He thought that he could absorb all of his dragon energy and break the dragon bloodline and real dragon fate in his body. But he didn't expect to gain anything this time. No matter how much he absorbed, Ma Qianye's dragon energy didn't budge. At first, Mo Qinshuan thought it was because Ma Qianye got the 7-leaf blood refining lotus. However, he had not been able to absorb even a little bit of Ma Qianye's dragon energy for an entire month, which made him extremely irritable. This also meant that his previous guess was wrong. It was absolutely impossible for a 7-leaf blood refining lotus to reach such a level. There was definitely another reason that he couldn't think of. Mo Qinshuan went back to the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin with anger. Now that he heard the words of that dragon regiment member, he was even more furious. Bang! He lifted his leg and kicked that member of the Dragon Corps away. Are all of you happy that my strength hasn't increased? His gaze swept across Tiger Cub and the others. These people were paying so much attention to his strength. Could it be that they were waiting to see him make a fool of himself? Or did they have some evil thoughts and want to replace him? Mo Qinshuan's words instantly frightened Tiger Cub and the others. They immediately knelt on the ground and hurriedly said, Your Highness, we don't dare. This person would be the future ruler of the Empire of Qin. They didn't dare to offend him, let alone have such thoughts. Humph. Mo Qinshuan's voice was cold. He returned to the main seat and sat down. During my absence, did anything happen in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin? Especially in Ma Qianye? Chapter 950. Hearing Mo Qinshuan's words, Tong Hu and the others were stunned. Your Highness. They stammered and couldn't say anything for a long time. What happened this time was really humiliating. The group of people originally thought that Mo Qinshan would not be so angry when they talked about these things after his breakthrough. But at this moment, Mo Qinshuan's strength did not break through, and he was in a bad mood, so they didn't dare to speak. In the end, it was Tong Hu who told him what happened recently under Mo Qinshuan's gaze. Hearing that the members of the Dragon Regiment were humiliated and were forced to kneel and apologize on the spot by Luo Qingtong, Mo Qinshan was instantly furious. Bang! He slammed the table in front of him with one hand, and the aura that exploded from his body instantly blew Tong Hu and the others who were kneeling in front of him to the ground. Good. Mo Qinshan was extremely furious. He looked at Tong Hu and the others who were lying on the ground and laughed out of anger. How long has it been since I left the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin? How could you embarrass me to this extent? You were forced to kneel and apologize by a freshman who just entered the academy and pay a large amount of cultivation resources? Why don't you just die? Mo Qinshan was so angry that he even changed the way he addressed himself. He looked at Tong Hu and the others who were struggling to get up from the ground with a gloomy look, and wished that he could kick them to death directly. How could they humiliate him so much? Not only that, they even threw them to the woman Ma Chenyi liked. How could they still show up in front of him? No wonder they were so surprised when they saw him, and so disappointed when they saw that his strength did not break through. A bunch of useless trash. Mo Qinshan was so angry. Tong Hu and the others knelt on the ground and did not even dare to say a word. Although there was a rule in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin that no one could kill a fellow student, with Mo Qinshuan's status, if he really killed them and destroyed the evidence, who could do anything about it? The group of people lay on the ground silently. When Mo Qinshan was almost done venting, he remembered that Luo Qingtong seemed to be Yu Wenma's fiancé. He immediately said coldly, "Call Yu Wenma here." Immediately, someone from the dragon group went to find Yu Wenmo and brought him over. "Yu Wenma." Mo Qinshuan's voice was cold. "Luo Qingtong is your fiancé. What do you think we should do this time?" Mo Qinshan looked at Yu Wenma with a gloomy face. He had lost a lot of face this time. Not only that, but he also suspected that Ma Chenyi already knew about his luck-seizing technique and had found a way to break it. Luo Qingtong was deliberately arranged by him to slap his face. On the other hand, Yu Wenma, Luo Qingtong's fiancé, was also suspected by him. This time, if it were not for Yu Wenma, the dragon group might not have confronted Luo Qingtong, and they would not have given Ma Chenyi a chance to slap his face. Thinking that he had suppressed Ma Chenyi for so many years since his rise, and at this time when he was about to succeed, he was slapped in the face by Luo Qingtong. His face and prestige were all lost, and Mo Qinshan was extremely angry. He did not think that Luo Qingtong, the legitimate daughter of a lord's mansion from a small inferior country, could have such ability. So all of this was ordered by Ma Chenyi? Then did Yu Wenmo rely on him and deliberately create opportunities for him? Chapter 951. As soon as he said that, Yu Wenma immediately knew what was going on. He gritted his teeth, bowed his head, and repeated what he had said to Su Deheng before. "Your Highness, don't worry. Since Luo Qingtong humiliated the dragon group and you, I will personally cripple her abilities in the duel 3 days later and make her pay the price for what she did this time." Very good. Looking at the expression on Yu Wenma's face, Mo Qinshan smiled. He relaxed his body and leaned back, saying coldly, "I heard that you would marry no one but her. I wanted to let her go for your sake. Since you have such an awareness and are so loyal to me, then why don't you show me your loyalty? Then let's do as you say. It just so happens that I need a few cheap female slaves in my backyard. I heard that Luo Qingtong is pretty?" Mo Qinshuan's smile was cold. "Although she is a woman from an inferior country, she is not even qualified to be my female slave after being destroyed. But I can't let go of those who offend me easily. Otherwise, everyone wants to step on my head. How can I deal with it?" He looked at Yu Wenma coldly and said, "After destroying her strength, send her to my mansion, okay? Just right, he could have a taste of the woman Ma Chenyi liked." Although Mo Qinshan didn't think that the rumor that Ma Chenyi liked her was true. But she was indeed on Ma Chenyi's side. No wonder she was so ambitious and wanted to break off the engagement with Yu Wenma. Mo Qinshan sneered. She just didn't know what kind of expression Mo Chenyi would have when the other party became a lowly female slave in his residence and was given to his subordinates to be ridden by thousands and tens of thousands of people. Yes. Yu Wenma clenched his fists fiercely. Although he was reluctant, he finally gritted his teeth and agreed. Mo Qinshan looked at him and finally waved his hand lazily, saying, Okay, you can leave. 3 days later, remember not to make a mistake. Otherwise you know what I am capable of. Emo Chinchuan's voice was cold. With Yu Wenma's strength, it was absolutely impossible for him to lose to Luo Qingtong. If he really failed, it would mean that he deliberately let go. At that time, neither of them would let him go. Emo Chinchuan's words were more like a threat than an exhortation. Hearing the meaning behind his words, Yu Wenma's hands suddenly tightened. In the end, he didn't dare to say anything and directly left. After leaving the Dragon Corps encampment, his eyes turned cold. Yu Wenma definitely didn't want to give up Luo Qingtong. He had persevered for so many years, so how could he let all his efforts go to waste now? But Emo Chinchuan's meaning was so obvious that it was not easy to fool him. He absolutely could not disobey. Then he could only start with Luo Qingtong. As long as she surrendered without a fight or admitted defeat, then he would have no reason to attack her. Not to mention crippling her. This way she would still be his fiancée. When the time came, she would kowtow and apologize for this matter and everything would be fine. Yu Wenma felt that compared to being crippled and becoming Emo Chinchuan's female slave, Luo Qingtong would agree to his suggestion. However, Yu Wenma, are you crazy? Luo Qingtong heard his words and couldn't help but laugh. He wanted her to admit defeat and surrender without a fight? He also wanted her to kowtow and apologize to the Dragon Corps people and the Seoul Institute's teachers. Chapter 952. If you're sick, hurry up and get treated. Don't be an eyesore here. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold as she prepared to leave. When Yu Wenma asked her out, she thought that he had changed his mind and was ready to break off the engagement. She didn't expect that he was here to persuade her to admit defeat. He even acted as if it was for her own good. If that was the case, why didn't Yu Wenma admit defeat? If he admitted defeat and broke off the engagement, wouldn't everything be fine? In the end, it was all for his own selfish reasons. Now he was acting as if it was all for her sake. Yu Wenma still had the nerve to say it, but Luo Qingtong wanted to vomit after hearing it. She didn't want to waste any time on him, but it was clear that Yu Wenma didn't think so. Luo Qingtong, that's enough. Yu Wenma looked at Luo Qingtong with gloomy and cold eyes. Do you know what will happen to you if you offend King Wu? Do you think the Crown Prince will save you? Wake up. If the Crown Prince could deal with His Highness King Wu, the Dragon Regiment wouldn't be the only one in the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy. I don't know what you did to the Heavenly Hall's training ground to prevent the Dragon Regiment from entering, but that opportunity can only be used once. Luo Qingtong. King Wu is back. What will you use to resist him and the Dragon Regiment? To tell you the truth, admitting defeat is your only way out. Otherwise, I'll break your limbs, cripple your strength, and send you to the Wu Imperial Manor as a female slave. Are you willing to do that, or are you willing to continue being my fiancé and preserve your strength? Before Yu Wenma could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong's cold voice rang out. I won't choose either. Yu Wenma, wait until you defeat me. Let's talk about this later. Cripple her strength? Demote her to a female slave? As long as he had the ability, she would accompany him to the end. Luo Qingtong said and turned to leave. She was afraid that if she stayed a few more seconds, she wouldn't be able to resist using the life and death yin-yang sword to hack Yu Wenma into pieces. But she couldn't, not now. 3 days later, in the arena, she would openly trample on her opponent. Luo Qingtong, this is your own choice. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance. Yu Wenma was almost angered to death by Luo Qingtong. If it wasn't for her background and that opportunity, how could he have been trampled by her again and again? Luo Qingtong, since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then don't blame me. In an instant, Yu Wenma made up his mind and turned to leave. This Yu Wenma is truly disgusting. He clearly coveted some benefits from you and was unwilling to give you up. Yet, he acted as if he was doing it for your own good and was saving you. Does he really think that other than him, everyone else is blind? On Luo Qingtong's shoulder, Little Pig ran out of nowhere and jumped onto her shoulder. Luo Qingtong paused when she heard its voice. Then she lifted it up by its 2 little ears. Where have you been all this time? Luo Qingtong looked at it coldly. This guy ran away as soon as he entered the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. Now that he came back, his stomach was round from eating. She didn't know which family he had gone to harm. He. Chapter 953. Chief Instructor. Following Little Pig's gaze, Luo Qingtong immediately saw the man standing in the shadows. She didn't know how long he had been here and how much he had heard of the conversation between her and Yu Wenma. This man really didn't feel at ease with her at all. Luo Qingtong thought, and her lips slightly curled up. She didn't know why, but the anger she felt because of Yu Wenma just now disappeared like smoke. What was the point of arguing with an idiot? It would only lower her IQ. Anyway, she would torture him 3 days later. And Yi Qianming nodded lightly and looked at the place where Yu Wenma's figure disappeared. The coldness in his eyes was sharp and cold. If he didn't leave this matter to Luo Qingtong, Yu Wenma would have died countless times. Now the other party even dared to threaten Luo Qingtong. Thinking of the words Yu Wenma just said, Yi Qianming couldn't help but emit a murderous aura. No matter how much he spoiled her, he couldn't get enough of her. The other party actually wanted to destroy her? Cripple her strength? Treat her as a female slave? Yu Wenma and Mo Qinshan really dared to dream. Resisting the urge to reveal his identity to Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianming, who was now Yi Luo, only coldly said, "You won't lose." The girl's growth and strength was carefully calculated by him. On the last day, her strength just happened to reach the most perfect state. At that time, he could open her meridians and open the shackles of her meridians and heaven and earth's spiritual energy in one fell swoop, forming a new cycle of power. At that time, she would reach the martial emperor realm. Luo Qingtong's strength and heaven and earth's energy would correspond, and she would be able to activate and control part of the heaven and earth's energy around her body. And the martial emperor realm was also the time when the soul seal began to display its true strength. Yi Qianming knew that Yu Wenma was a soul seal spirit, a spirit emperor. But he believed that Luo Qingtong wouldn't lose. And, looking at the man's cold eyes, Luo Qingtong felt an indescribable warmth in her heart. She smiled and nodded, then began her daily teasing of Yi Qianming. Aya. She pretended to accidentally fall and fell towards Yi Qianming. Instructor, be careful. Get out of the way. Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. Yi Qianming's hand had already caught her quickly. What's the matter? Yi Qianming frowned and looked at her, instantly forgetting his identity as Yi Luo's chief instructor. With so many flaws, Luo Qingtong was too embarrassed to expose him. She just had to let him feel that his disguise was very successful. She would get jealous for no reason. This kind of life was quite interesting. I don't know either. Luo Qingtong blinked her eyes and steadied herself with his strength. It's probably because the training was too tiring. Instructor, thank you, please let me go. I can walk. Luo Qingtong said as she leaned on Yi Qianming softly. How could Yi Qianming really let go of her in this state? Suddenly, he picked her up with a conflicted expression. It was hard to tell if he was more depressed or distressed as he carried her and strode out. Little Pig was already stunned in Luo Qingtong's arms. Oh my God, is this world a fantasy? This woman actually threw herself into a man's arms and acted coquettishly? And the man wasn't even that man? Little Pig didn't appear for several days and missed the key information. His face was filled with sadness and confusion. He didn't know if he should support Luo Qingtong to find another true love, or break up the couple and let that woman wake up and avoid Yi Qianming's pursuit. Hatred born from love was the most terrifying thing. Even until the day Luo Qingtong was prepared to have a duel with Yu Wenma, she still had not come to a conclusion. Chapter 954. Rumble. Luo Qingtong was sitting upright on the stairs in the center of the waterfall. She had been sitting there for nearly a day. At first, she would be sent flying as soon as she climbed up, but now she could sit there for a whole day. The power in Luo Qingtong's body had already adapted to the impact of the water. The power in her body was faintly agitated. Bang, bang, bang. The power lines around Luo Qingtong's body due to the rapid vibration of the power had already expanded to a 1-meter radius around her. From afar it looked like a cocoon wrapped around Luo Qingtong. Chief Instructor, do you think boss can make a breakthrough? Yuan Hu and the others were nervously guarding the shore, motionlessly raising their heads to look at Luo Qingtong, who was sitting upright on the stairs of the waterfall. Some of them could also climb the stairs in the center, but it was impossible for them to sit there for a whole day like Luo Qingtong. Boss was definitely going to make a breakthrough. Yuan Hu and the others were very excited. At the same time, in the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin, Yu Wenma and the members of the Dragon Regiment arrived at the arena of the Heavenly Palace's training ground near noon. The arena in the center was already empty. Most of the people in the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin knew that Luo Qingtong and Yu Wenma had made a bet. This was probably the strangest couple in the history of the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. One wanted to break off the engagement, the other didn't. If it was just this, it would be fine. But the one who wanted to break off the engagement was rumored to love the one who didn't want to break off the engagement. The one who didn't want to break off the engagement was impatient, but for the sake of his promise he was determined not to break off the engagement. Such a good show. In addition, Luo Qingtong and Yu Wenma both had a good reputation in the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. Especially Luo Qingtong, she did a series of surprising things as soon as she entered the Holy Institute. Almost everyone in the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin knew her. Under such circumstances, this battle naturally attracted the attention of countless people. Mo Qinxian showed up surrounded by the crowd. He walked to the front of the arena and looked at Ma Qinyi, who was surrounded by the Guiyuan clan. A cold light flashed in his eyes. "Brother, I didn't expect you to come as well. It seems like you're really interested in that Luo Qingtong just like the rumors say." But Mo Qinxian looked at Ma Qinyi and sneered. "Imperial brother, don't you think this is too degrading? Is a woman from an inferior country worthy of your pursuit? Imperial brother, don't forget your identity." Mo Qinxian implied that Ma Qinye's behavior was not worthy of the crown prince's identity. She was just a girl from an inferior country. So what if she was powerful? Mo Qinxian sneered in his heart. However, he was happy to see Ma Qinye's actions. The more Ma Qinyi pursued Luo Qingtong, the more he valued her, and the more interesting his expression would be when she became his female slave. Mo Qinxian sneered as he said this. He turned around and left and sat down on the chairs prepared by the Dragon Regiment. His words infuriated everyone in the Guiyuan clique. They didn't understand why Ma Qinyi valued Luo Qingtong before. But after the Heavenly Palace's training ground, they changed their view. Not only that, they admired Luo Qingtong for daring to fight with the Dragon Regiment and winning. Chapter 955. King Wu's ambition is getting bigger and bigger. These years he really didn't restrain himself at all. A backbone member of the Guiyuan regiment said angrily. Mo Qinxuan's words were really arrogant. It was as if the position of crown prince was already in his bag. He really thought that they were all dead. Don't mind him. He's only good at talking, that's all. Ma Qinye's face was indifferent. That pair of elegant and calm eyes, however, revealed a cold glint. He was just shouting. According to Ma Qinye's previous estimation, if Mo Qinxian came back after the breakthrough, he would definitely attack him. But at this moment he only shouted a few words and it was over. Although in the eyes of others he was no different from usual. But Ma Qinyi obviously felt that Mo Qinxian was not confident enough. So, did he fail to break through? Thinking of the extremely stable dragon qi in his body during this period, Ma Qinye's eyes were cold and he smiled. Mo Qinxian couldn't be arrogant for long. As for the words that he despised Luo Qingtong, it was even more ridiculous. If Luo Qingtong's identity was exposed, Mo Qinxian couldn't compare at all. He couldn't even find out this. How could Mo Qinxian look down on Luo Qingtong? Ma Qinye's face was indifferent. He didn't want to lower himself to Mo Qinxuan's level. In contrast, he was more concerned about how much Luo Qingtong's strength had improved. A month's time was really too tight. With Luo Qingtong's talent and strength, if she had enough time, she would definitely surpass Yu Wenma. The latter couldn't be compared with her at all. But now, there was only 1 month. Just as Ma Qinyi frowned slightly, in the huge waterfall outside the holy capital of the Empire of Qin, the water cocoon formed by Luo Qingtong was getting bigger and bigger. All the water around her was sucked into the center of her body. Boom! The whole waterfall showed a strange scene. The water above the waterfall was all flowing to the center. Under such circumstances, the water in the pool below also abruptly flowed upwards. Rumble! The sound of flowing water became more rapid. The roaring sound of the water flow was like the sound of thunder, reverberating in everyone's ears. Bang, bang, bang! As the water flowed backwards, a rhythmic rhythm suddenly resounded from the center of the water flow where Luo Qingtong was. That sound seemed to have a life of its own as it throbbed violently. In the beginning it was very slow. Then it became faster and faster, faster and faster. But when the sound reached a certain extent, the entire huge water cocoon that was completely enveloped by the waterfall exploded with a boom. Boom! Luo Qingtong's figure rushed out from within. Rumble! The sound of water bursting could be heard all around. The water of the entire waterfall suddenly burst out from the water cocoon. In an instant, the entire sky was filled with mist and water droplets. Large amounts of water burst into the sky. In such a scene, Luo Qingtong was like Muyu walking on water. She stepped on the aura of the water in the sky and walked down step by step. The martial emperor realm, the realm of oneness of heaven and man. She could control the spiritual qi of heaven and earth with her own aura. Countless aura of water floated around Luo Qingtong. Chapter 956. Behind Luo Qingtong, there was a barrier that was hundreds of feet high. It made the girl look like a spirit that was rising from the water. Chief Instructor, I've broken through. Luo Qingtong's eyes sparkled as she looked at the man who was standing on the shore with his hands behind his back. This time, without Yi Qianxian, she would not have broken through so easily. To break through the barrier from the martial royal realm to the martial emperor realm, one had to use one's own strength to communicate with the power of heaven and earth and turn the power of heaven and earth into a part of one's own strength cycle. It was easy to say, but it was definitely not easy to do. Yi Qianxian had the heavenly pulse body. His meridians were naturally connected with the power of heaven and earth. Only he knew how to make Luo Qingtong communicate with the power of heaven and earth as soon as possible to establish a new cycle. If it were anyone else, it would be impossible to make Luo Qingtong break through from the martial royal realm to the martial emperor realm in a month. The improvement in the martial royal realm was a quantitative improvement. As long as the martial artist had enough comprehension and had enough strength in his body, he would naturally be able to break through the barrier. However, comprehension and strength were not enough to break through to the next realm. He also needed opportunities and opportunities. Breaking through to the martial emperor realm from the martial emperor realm was not only a breakthrough to the next realm, but also a breakthrough to a new level. Only when a martial artist entered the martial emperor realm could he be considered to have stepped into the ranks of the experts on the continent and started the real path of cultivation. Only those who entered this realm would know how awe-inspiring the real path of cultivation was. It was only after Luo Qingtong broke through to the martial emperor realm that she realized how shocking it was for her to kill those injured martial emperors with her eye technique and the life and death yin-yang sword. Below the martial emperor realm, she was the enemy of tens of thousands of people. As long as it was an expert below the martial emperor realm, a martial emperor realm expert could plunder the aura of the spiritual qi of heaven and earth around the opponent, so that the opponent could not replenish his strength. He could also directly freeze the aura of the spiritual qi around the opponent. In short, a martial artist below the martial emperor realm would not have any power to fight back against a martial emperor realm expert. However, Luo Qingtong had never felt this way. It was the same when she faced an expert above the martial emperor scripture. She did not think that it was because she was gifted. So, was there something that blocked all of this for her? Luo Qingtong could not help but look at the 9 phoenix ring on her finger. Was it? Among Luo Qingtong's treasures, the 9-story exquisite pagoda had always been in her sea of consciousness. Life and death sword was summoned when it was needed. So it was definitely not. This man was the only one who had forced her to wear the ring, which she had mistaken for a tracker. So, how much had this man done for her without her knowing? Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianren with sparkling eyes. Martial of the martial. Looking at the young girl's gaze, he instantly felt stifled. If this gaze was directed at his true self, he would be overjoyed. However, it was for his incarnation. Of the martial emperor. Yi Qianxian felt a burst of irritation in his heart. He deeply felt that he had dug a hole for himself. And this hole was very deep. He had created a love rival for himself. And this love rival was very powerful. Looking at Luo Qingtong's sparkling eyes, Yi Qianxian felt extremely depressed. Puff. Chapter 957. This man is jealous of me again. Luo Qingtong found it funny when she saw his conflicted and depressed expression. At this moment, Little Pig, who was beside her, had also noticed some clues. This man, is he that man? Little Pig whispered to Luo Qingtong. Those who didn't know better would think that Little Pig and Luo Qingtong were talking in riddles. In fact, Little Pig wanted to say that the chief instructor was Yi Qianxian. Luo Qingtong held back her laughter and nodded at Little Pig. Shoo, she whispered to Little Pig, telling him not to let Yi Qianxian know that he had been exposed. Little Pig was speechless as he looked at the two of them. Aren't these two too good at fooling around? One of them thought that the other party didn't know about his disguise and was jealous of him. The other clearly knew that he was disguising his identity but pretended not to know, making him jealous of himself. You two can do it. Little Pig's lips twitched. Luo Qingtong smiled but didn't say anything. Boss. Yuan Hu and the others came to their senses and surrounded her. Boss, you broke through? They looked at the aura around Luo Qingtong in disbelief. Yes, I broke through. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at the sky. Then she said, let's go. Let's return to the holy court of the Empire of Qin. It's time to let Yu Wenma know who the genius is and who the loser is. He wants to cripple her strength and make her a slave? I'm afraid he doesn't have the ability or opportunity to do so. Yes. Yuan Hu and the others were full of excitement. The Gui Yuan group and the other talented geniuses of the holy court who stayed behind with them were also waiting for a good show. No one expected that Luo Qingtong would really break through to the martial emperor realm in a month. After all, to a certain extent, this was equivalent to a fantasy story. Who would have thought that Luo Qingtong would actually succeed? Of course, it was due to the chief instructor's efforts, but Luo Qingtong's comprehension and talent were top-notch too. Otherwise, how could the chief instructor help her? If she was as stupid as a pig, it would be impossible for her to break through from the martial monarch realm to the martial emperor realm in a month. Yu Wenma probably didn't expect this either, right? His fiancée, whom he despised in every possible way, had actually grown to such an extent. He had even broken the common people's definition of a genius. Everyone could already imagine the shocked expressions of Yu Wenma and the others when Luo Qingtong appeared on the stage. A group of people immediately rushed to the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. At the same time, in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin, Yu Wenma sat beside the arena with a cold face. 2 days ago he had failed to negotiate with Luo Qingtong, which made him very angry. He liked Luo Qingtong. It could even be said that she was in love with him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have defended her again and again and tried to find a way to absolve her. Maybe he did have other purposes for the previous Luo Qingtong, so he was unwilling to give her up. But now, the Luo Qingtong was completely different from what he knew. In addition to those reasons, he also wanted to have her. But she didn't care about him at all. When Luo Qingtong proposed to break off the engagement in the square when they just entered the academy, he thought that she was angry. When she made him kneel while she was fighting with the dragon group, he thought that she was still angry and was wantonly venting. But this time. Chapter 958. The girl who once followed him, called him Brother Mo, said that she would work hard to grow up and be his bride, and refused to give up no matter what, was gone. Now Luo Qingtong regarded him as an enemy, an opponent, and an obstacle in her eyes. She didn't want to have anything to do with him. The funny thing was that the Luo Qingtong used to be regarded as a burden and trash by him. He didn't want to spend any time and energy on her at all. He didn't even want to look at her. Now Luo Qingtong, who disdained him, was tempted. Yu Wenma didn't believe in retribution before, but now he did. Luo Qingtong would rather fail and become Mo Qinshuan's slave than be his fiancée. Her disgust for him had reached such a level. As Yu Wenma thought about it, he suddenly cracked the armrest of the chair he was sitting on. If he didn't withdraw his hand quickly, the armrest would have been crushed by him in an instant. Senior brother, don't be angry. When Luo Qingtong comes, you can teach her a lesson. But I think she doesn't dare to come. Su Jinyue, who was sitting next to him, noticed his behavior and thought that he was angry because Luo Qingtong didn't come. She suddenly felt a burst of joy in her heart and quickly comforted him. Anyway, if she doesn't come, you will break off the engagement. At that time we still have a chance to get even with her. Especially when His Highness King Wu comes back. She can't escape. Senior brother, don't worry. If Luo Qingtong doesn't come, my father won't blame you. As she said, she glanced at Su Xiaoxiao and others with disdain and said, it's because some people talked big at the beginning, saying that there would be a gambling battle in a month and that they would break off the engagement. In the end, they just said that. In the end, they still didn't come and continued the trick of breaking off the engagement. It's disgusting. Obviously, she can't bear to leave my senior brother, but she pretended that she didn't care and made the whole Holy Academy know about it. Su Jinyue deliberately let Su Xiaoxiao and the others hear it. Her voice was extremely loud, and in an instant, it spread to the crowd around her. Su Xiaoxiao and the others heard it even though they were standing far away. In an instant, Su Xiaoxiao, that innocent girl, was so angry that her face turned red. How dare you speak ill of boss? Su Xiaoxiao was so angry that she was about to say something. The little girl holding the white cat beside her opened her mouth. That's still better than some shameless women who cling on to someone else's fiancé. Big sis Xiaoxiao, I'm still young so I don't know how to describe these women. Do you know what to call it? Is she a promiscuous woman or a woman of loose morals? Or is it a lascivious sex? The little girl blinked her eyes and asked innocently. She scolded Su Jinyue thoroughly. Su Jinue glared at the little girl holding the white cat. Before she could yell, a cold voice came from the back of the heavenly demon group from the other side. Let me tell you, this kind of person is called a green TB*. As soon as the voice came, Su Xiaoxiao and the others immediately turned around. Boss. Their faces were full of joy. Because of Su Xiaoxiao and Yuan Hu, the people in the heavenly demon group all called Luo Qingtong boss. Hearing this, the crowd in the dueling ring immediately turned their gazes over. Chapter 959. My God. The moment they saw the aura on Luo Qingtong's body, many people took a deep breath. Not for anything else. Luo Qingtong's aura was that of the martial emperor realm. Because she had just advanced, Luo Qingtong's aura was very sharp. Like sharp thorns, it spread in all directions. Even if she tried to restrain it, it would take 1 or 2 days for the sharp aura to circulate perfectly. Luo Qingtong had advanced to the martial emperor realm in a month? Everyone who felt the aura from Luo Qingtong's body opened their eyes wide. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. When Luo Qingtong entered the academy, she was only in the martial royal realm. Although her aura was very condensed, much more condensed than that of ordinary martial royal realm geniuses. But to advance from the martial royal realm to the martial emperor realm in a month. Were they dreaming? Was it because Luo Qingtong was too monstrous, or were they too ignorant? It should be known that Yu Wenma had a good reputation in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. But it took him more than half a year to advance from the martial royal realm to the martial emperor realm. Yu Wenma had reached the peak of the martial royal realm a long time ago. After that, he had been stuck at the threshold of advancing from the martial royal realm to the martial emperor realm. He couldn't cross it no matter how hard he tried. It was only after the trip to the Kaiyuan Mystery Land that he got an opportunity to cultivate in seclusion. Luo Qingtong had caught up with Yu Wenma's half a year of hard work in just a month? And looking at Luo Qingtong's aura, she didn't seem to be flimsy at all? She didn't forcibly improve her strength, but actually advanced? Everyone was dumbfounded. Very quickly, someone discovered that Yuan Hu and the rest, including a few members of the Gue Yuan team and a few talented students of the Saint Academy, who were following Luo Qingtong, had a great increase in their abilities. Instantly, they were shocked to realize that Luo Qingtong and the others followed the new chief instructor to train. That was why there was such an improvement. Oh my God. Back then, the Grand Principal had said that the chief instructor was very powerful and that if one became his last disciple, one's strength could increase by a whole realm within a month. It was actually true. That chief instructor actually did it. As the crowd thought about it, they were both shocked and regretful. Oh my God. If they had known that the chief instructor was so powerful, they would have also acknowledged him as their teacher. You want to be his closed-door student even if you have to be so thick-skinned. When everyone was shocked, Su Jinue's face was filled with disbelief and embarrassment. How was this possible? Luo Qingtong had broken through to the martial emperor realm? Not only that, but his strength was also very solid. Even if Su Jinue wanted to say that she had used some dirty tricks to improve herself, she couldn't say it out loud. She looked at Luo Qingtong with an ugly expression. There was nothing more embarrassing than being slapped in the face right now. She had just said that Luo Qingtong didn't dare to come to the battle, but the latter appeared in front of her. Not only that, but Luo Qingtong's words of green tea bitch also hurt her deeply. Although she didn't know what a green tea bitch was. She didn't know that it was a good description. Su Jinue's voice suddenly became sharp. Luo Qingtong. You. Chapter 960. This woman, from the first time she saw her, she had always been this overbearing. It was as if having a good family meant that the whole world was her mother. However, Luo Qingtong didn't have the attitude of Yu Wenma to spoil her. She calmly glanced at Su Jinue and then lowered her head to look at the little girl holding the white cat beside Su Xiaoxiao. She raised her eyebrows and asked, "What's your name?" Xingqi. The cute little loli giggled and said her name. Then she glanced at Su Jinue, who was fuming with anger, and said, "So a woman who's sucking up to someone else's fiancé is called a green tea bitch?" She smiled and stroked the white cat in her arms. "I'll remember that. I'll call her green tea bitch from now on. I don't remember her name anyway." The little loli's words were always green tea bitch, and woman who's sucking up to someone else's fiancé, instantly degrading Su Jinue to the bottom of the mud. Yu Xingqi didn't hide her words at all. Her voice was clear and loud, with an indescribable childish taste, making Su Jinue's character even more unbearable. When everyone heard her words, They couldn't help but glance at Su Jinhua, thinking that this little girl was right. No matter what, Yu Wenma was someone who had an engagement. In the past, Luo Qingtong wasn't in the sacred institution of the Empire of Qin and was rumored to be very unbearable. They didn't think that there was anything wrong with Su Jinhua liking Yu Wenma. But now, it seemed that she wasn't behaving properly. Yu Wenma had an engagement, yet she still wanted to be his concubine? Su Jinhua wanted to be a concubine for the daughter of a great teacher of the Soul Institute? If she didn't want to be his concubine, could it be that Su Jinhua wanted to get rid of Luo Qingtong from the start? No wonder Luo Qingtong's reputation in the sacred institution of the Empire of Qin was so bad. Also, Yu Wenma disliked Luo Qingtong so much before. He wondered how much Su Jinhua had done in the process. With that in mind, everyone looked at Su Jinhua differently. Su Jinhua was so angry that she couldn't speak. She did have the intention to replace Luo Qingtong. But how could the Luo Qingtong of the past be worth her scheming? She didn't even put him in her eyes, okay? But now, with just a few words from the other party, she had become synonymous with viciousness and scheming. She had even shamelessly thrown herself at him. There was no way she could clear her name in front of so many people. As Su Jinhua thought of this, she suddenly felt dizzy. He was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. What made her even angrier and more embarrassed was Luo Qingtong's next words. The green TB*TCH is real. As for my fiancé, he's just trash that I threw away. If she wants to pick him up, then let her. The moment Luo Qingtong's words came out, Su Jinhua's face was so angry that it almost distorted. Before she could speak, Yu Wenma had already stood up angrily. Luo Qingtong, I'm still your fiancé. Yu Wenma looked at the girl in front of him with an ugly expression. In her heart, he was just a pile of trash? Was he that unbearable? Ha! Luo Qingtong looked coldly at the anger on Yu Wenma's face. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.